Hello YouTube, this is Mac, and in this video we're going to show you how to replace a radiator on any vehicles. That means we're going to talk about the tricks, the differences from a manufacturer to another to give you a good common sense that a mechanic need after years of experience. So there are 4 steps to do it. We're going to talk about each one of them step by step and in details. So after in the link below, what do you prefer, drive the Challenger or the other Camaro SS? So let's talk about the steps. So step number 1 is draining the antifreeze. Step number 2 is disconnecting the fan, whether it's a clutch or it's electric fan. Step number 3 is tackling the hoses and disconnect them. And then finally, step number 4 is disconnecting the radiator itself and removing it. So reinstallation should be the reverse process. So step number 1, in order to drain the radiator or the whole cooling system, you gotta look down below. You don't have to go underneath the vehicle right away. Take a look and look for a valve like this. We'll give you another example. Alright, or on this Challenger, here's the drain plug. If we look from the top, big possibility we're going to be able to see it. Going down, dropping the camera all the way down. So you see down there, that's the plug there. You can even reach out from the top. So if your vehicle is slow, a really good practice is putting a ramps. Make sure the ramps doesn't hit your bumper, or you're gonna have to remove the bumper or the little splitter. Yes, putting ramps underneath vehicles like this that are really close is a challenge. So you can also use jacks and jack stand it, and then you can get enough room. Make sure you follow the safety process. Now, if you own a truck, then lucky for you, you don't really have to do any jacking off or nothing. So remember always to take the cap off, just to let the system empty all what's inside a lot faster. And remember, make sure you don't ever touch this while the vehicle is still hot. Even a couple hours after, you need to let that thing cool down, and make sure you open this slow if you're trying to risk yourself to open it. Step number 2, once all the radiator coolant is out of the system, you can tackle the hoses. So I might have mentioned this step of removing the fan before the hoses, but actually you got to remove the hoses before. So the hoses gets to be removed second, because they're going to be in the way if you don't. Now on most of radiators you have 2 big hoses, one on top for the returning hot antifreeze to the radiator, and then one on the bottom for the cool antifreeze going back toward the water pump back to the engine. So that's in case if your vehicle is equipped with a manual transmission. Lucky for you, you don't have any cooling ATF lines going to the bottom of your radiator to cool down. Now if your vehicle is automatic, you still can get lucky and have a separate cooler. That'd definitely be a plus, rather than having an integrated cooler in the side of the radiator itself. But through the last years, I've seen these are getting more and more common than the ones that goes in the radiator. So since you really want to have the experience in few words, the type of clamps that I commonly see the most are 3. The quick connect clamps consist on a quick connect system that the hose has to be shoved in the radiator and gets stuck usually by an O-ring. If you look closely here, you'll see a pin. So you get a pick and pull that pin out, and once that pin is removed, you can pull the hose easily, no problem. Remember, when you pull that pin, make sure you keep some tension on the hose, especially when you install it. then definitely you have these kind of clamps too, but some people call them little demons. These type of clamps doesn't require special tools, just a big plier can take this, unless if you're dealing with the one down there and you have hard time getting it. Every little angle needle nose can help doing it. And also the third kind of clamp, it is the conventional one that can be removed with a screwdriver or even a socket. Usually the size is 7mm. So when it comes to newer vehicles, like this is a Camaro 2017, the radiator fans are definitely going to be electric, unless maybe some cars. So when it comes to electric vehicles, all you're gonna have to do is 2 steps. You're gonna find the harness, disconnect the harness, push it away, and also you're gonna disconnect the fan itself. The fan itself usually have 4 points of mountings with bolts. You find the appropriate size. Normally the size is 8 to 10mm, and on any vehicle, and trying to push this away. Now in this process, taking the fan out, you may run into other issues like clearances behind stuffs. Now I'm not really gonna talk a lot about whatever behind it, but it depends from manufacturer to another. I just wanted to give this example because you got the hose there behind it. So luckily for this Camaro, that's a coolant hose. Your vehicle is like this Kia, equipped with a front wheel drive. You're gonna be definitely sure that the fan is gonna be electric, because the way the engine is installed, you can only have an electric fan. Again, the way to remove the fan, starting with the wiring harness, disconnecting the wiring harness, and then definitely reaching them bolts. Like for example, that blue bolt in there. That holds the fan clutch. I mean the electric fan, and usually it has 4. Now in some cases you have 2. They're gonna be 2 on the top, and then this slides in a locking mechanism. Usually it's made out of plastic parts. So in this case, the way this hose is getting in front of the fan, we're definitely gonna get that thing off before. That's why we switched that to step 2. So don't be intimidated with the little hoses and kind of plastic cover that gets in front of you in your way. In most cases, you're gonna just need to pull these. So a set of these tools, trim, the molding tool, would do really good without scratching your covers on top of the radiator. Just think about buying these. They're like a few bucks from Harbor Freight. Now, if your engine is installed the same direction of your vehicle, backward like that for a rear-wheel drive or 4-wheel drive, you're definitely gonna have a possibility of a mechanical fan clutch. And there are 2 styles. The most common style is this. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and show you the tools needed for this. But before, I'm gonna go through the other mechanism as well. So for this type of fan, you have to remember to keep the belt on. Keep your belt on first to acquire some tension. A really long screwdriver will help you. So in this style, you're gonna have to find a long screwdriver and jam between 2 nuts. This is a little short one, but you're gonna insert this underneath that nut. You're gonna insert it underneath of it and hold tension. So this is the way that you can do without getting special tools and get them loose one by one. Don't totally remove the one. I'll show you the toolkit that you can get for this. And yes, once you get them all loose, you're gonna take the belt off, and then you can remove the fan clutch. Now remember, when you do this step, you got to handle the fan shroud. The fan shroud is usually stays on the radiator while you're doing the fan clutch removing, and you're gonna leave it on because in most cases it gets so tight that you're only gonna be able to pull your hand from the back and grab the fan clutch alongside with the fan shroud. And on this example, when I replace my radiator on this old Toyota, I definitely removed the shroud because it was damaged, but I would get a one in the first opportunity I find. Now, the other mechanism that I've seen of a fan clutch is this, the one with the big nut. Usually the stud, threaded big stud, comes out from the water pump. So you're gonna need the same locking tools in here than the other mechanism. So you can still use a long screwdriver, or I'll show you the kit that comes with everything. And I'll also talk about the sizes of this nut. Now, this is the phase where you need to look where your engine is spinning, and when the loosening goes in reverse or right. So what do I mean by reverse is, if you go counterclockwise, you might get it tighter. If you go clockwise, you might get it loose. And that all depends on how your engine spins. Usually the direction of your engine, where it does spin, as most engine spins clockwise, makes it easy to remove that thing counterclockwise. And that is why I advise you to check your user manual. Like, this is a F250 2013. Now, don't be intimidated again by whatever comes on top. Like this, common sense, just take that off and look what it is. If it's power steering, try not to spill it, try not to remove the hoses. Like, you can know there's power steering by the type of fluid, or look what's in there. So again, I have the shroud here on. The shroud is usually installed also with 4 bolts. On these kind of fan clutch mechanically operating systems, they have the fan shroud separate. They're not like the electric. The electric, they comes with the fan and shroud are together in one unit. Here you got these bolts, but remember, don't try to move the shroud until you get all your fan clutch mechanism loose and ready to go off. And go back, grab the fan, and don't let it fall and damage your radiator. And then also, that's when you should have all the bolts, all the fan shroud removed, and then you can take them off. As you can clearly see, that's a pretty new. I did a job on this not too long ago, replacing all the cooling main components: fan clutch, water pump, and thermostat. So let's go ahead and give you an idea on the tools that are required for this job. So you're definitely gonna need a fan clutch service kit. Otherwise, you buy it, or you go to the local auto parts store and rent it for free, give the money, use it, bring it back within 90 days, and they will give you your money back. So you're definitely gonna use these for the big nut kind of mechanism for the fan clutch. And you got here a 1/2 inch square. That's really handy to insert a breaker bar. Now this tool is the one that you're gonna need if you want to do both mechanisms. In both ways, this is gonna lock your pulley. So some pulleys have pins and these holes can go in, or you also can go around the bolts through here. And this kind of stuff is adjustable. Oh. So this thing is adjustable, and pretty long. And then finally step number 4 with the radiator itself. In most cases you will find 4 bolts, 2 on top, 2 on the bottom. Some cases like this you'll find 2 bolts here that are holding a damper just to keep the radiator off the vibrations of the vehicle on the road. And the bottom usually is free. So once you take the top off, it pulls up. So for example here at the bottom, it just sits on the mounts. You don't have to remove the mounts from their bolts. All you have to do once their radiator is loose and free from the top, you can take these 2 bolts off and it'll come right off. And the radiator mount on this Camaro are these. You take these 2 bolts off, you take the whole mount, and this is just a rubber just to keep the vibration off. And the bottom, the other side is the same. The bottom should be just pins coming out of the radiator support into 2 bottom brackets that you don't have to even touch. You just have to pull the radiator out. And remember, every time you're going to work on newer vehicles, remember to see the mounts and everything. You're definitely going to take these off. And it just depends on a vehicle to another. I hope this video gave you a good idea about how to replace a radiator on any vehicle, and kind of tips and some knowledge from experience could help boost a young fella or anybody that really wants to get into doing things. So it just will take a little bit of time to acquire common sense of a mechanic, in which you don't have to look for service manuals anymore. Please hit the like button, subscribe, put a comment if you need any help or if I missed something here.